Guys, let's talk about Preemptive Strike. So I was sort of just thinking about this. I was reading some posts about how like people think Florine and Rene are kind of gated behind their breakthrough threes because that's when they get their Preemptive Strike. And that kind of got me thinking about Preemptive Strikes in general and how they kind of affect the game in a kind of a massive way. So for those who don't know, Preemptive Strike is a passive that allows any unit to start the game with their active skill completely ready to use. So for a lot of characters, this is really useful because they have really long cooldowns on their abilities. So Rene, for instance, has a 3-turn cooldown, so you'll be able to use that immediately at the start instead of waiting those 3 turns to use her cooldown. So it's obviously very, very important. But also, is it important? Like, for the most part, if we're using Preemptive Strike, right, you are probably going to be using it in something like Calamity Codex, right? Where every single turn matters. You need to maximize every single turn for the most amount of damage possible. So in this case, ideally, you would probably want all of your units to have Preemptive Strike. So you can instantly, like, let's say, teleport to the boss, convert tiles around the boss, do something like Louise to, get more chain combo damage, and so on. You want to be able to use all your units at the same time to synergize. But yet again, does it really matter? For the most part, let's say you're going for massive damage, right? You are getting, what, 2 more boxes? I'm at Platinum right now, right? I get 150 Lamamber. Legendary gets 150 Lamamber. You get, like, 2 more Calamity Codex packs. And the packs aren't that incredible. Like, they're not that amazing. They give you a chance to get Star Flares and some other upgrade materials, but that's about it. It's really not that interesting, I would say. So it's just like, it's really important that Preemptive if you want to synergize super well with your team. But yet again, like, do you really need to synergize with your team that much? And kind of going off of that a little bit, I've noticed that like a lot of the preemptive, like really useful units are 4 stars. So for instance, the one that's kind of off the top of my head is Beverly here. She's a really good preemptive 5-star. I forget if I said 4-star, but 5-star. So here, they just have preemptive. It's not a thing that you need to unlock here at all. They just have preemptive. So this is a very accessible unit compared to something like a, let's see, like a Rene, for instance. Kind of go over here so I can show her wherever she is. Oh man, this sorting system. I am not making this work. Okay, here she is. So yeah, so compared to something like Rene, like you're not gonna get her preemptive that easily, right? You have to get it through her breakthrough. So basically, you're almost guaranteed to have, for an element, you're going to have probably one of those converters. You're going to have Faust, you're going to have Beverly, you're going to have, oh jeez, who's the water one? It's off the top, Klecken, and the other unit who I forgot, Pact. So you're going to have one of those 5-star units, and they're automatically preemptive. And let's say you're a new player, right? You want to go and look at, like, the new unit, and you want to go grab the new unit. So we're going to go over here. It will be like this. Oh, Rene. Yeah, I want to pull for her. So you're going to go pull for her. You want to use her with Faust. Faust is your best converter, and you want to use Rene with Faust. So you go pull. You get her. You got lucky. And now you have both Faust and Rene. Problem is, Rene doesn't have a preemptive. So if I'm doing something like Calamity Codex here, I'm going to have an issue. Because, and I actually had this issue, kind of with Calamity Codex. So, Faust, of course, has his preemptive, Rene doesn't. You're going to start the match, and Faust is going to be able to use his skill. But Rene can't use hers. So, you're going to have to, like, wait a turn. So basically, if you're trying to deal the most damage possible, your team is going to be gated by whoever has the longest cooldown on your team. If your unit has like a 10-turn cooldown, to be super, to exaggerate a whole lot. If your unit has a 10-turn cooldown, you're waiting 10 turns for your team to reach their full potential. So, in realistic terms, though, we're waiting 3 turns for Rene to do her conversion. So it's like, it's kind of weird and awkward to be forming a team with units that are preemptive and units that aren't preemptive. They just lose a whole bunch of synergy. And you can definitely notice it. If you're playing with a team with all preemptives, it feels so much better than a team that has no preemptives at all. Because if you don't have a team with any preemptives, you are doing nothing, right? You're running around with no active skills available. You're just trying to get chain combo damage and that sort of thing. So I think this is kind of leading me to a point of, is Preemptive Strike a crutch? Or is that just like basically the business model that Kodog is going off of? It's probably not the most obvious like money maker that you would see from this game, right? I think personally, the main thing that people would associate this game with in terms of spending is pulling for the units. Because obviously, you know, whatever unit you see, you want to go pull for them. But there's also the Preemptive Strike here, which this is very conveniently, you know, very accessible. I do notice like some units, like some of the older units, and I think other people point this out, like Sharona, for instance, their breakthroughs are at the very end. So for your more casual players, they're not going to be very likely to pull for Sharona because you have to get 4 dupes of Sharona. And let's be honest, no one's going to be very excited to pull for 4 dupes. So they decided, for most, if not like all the new units at this point, they're going to put the Preemptive Strike right at the beginning. So you just need a single dupe now. So basically, it's like their entire kind of like business model, essentially, is they're giving you a unit that probably doesn't feel that good because the rest of your units are preemptive. And you're more likely to have preemptive on your older units just because, like, depending on how long you've been playing the game, you accidentally pulled more copies, so now you have their preemptive, so those units feel a lot better. So once you get this new unit that doesn't have preemptive, you're going to be using them in content, and you're going to be like, this unit doesn't feel as good because it didn't come with the preemptive here. So, is Preemptive Strike like a crutch in this game? I did like some counting. I checked all of my 6 stars here, and I figured out that 14 out of 15 of my 6 stars have a preemptive within their breakthrough tree. 14 out of 15. The only one who didn't is Nikinis. And that's because she's just a preemptive converter. She's essentially the equivalent of a 5-star pact. Except she's a 6-star and, you know, better in certain ways. So, it's kind of like a clutch. It's a crutch, essentially, for Tourdog. They will put the Preemptive Strike here, and they don't really get too creative, realistically. Sometimes I notice that, like, the very last breakthrough, they like to put a very interesting, like, kind of passive or, like, twist on a certain ability. But it's like, couldn't they do that for the Preemptive Strike, too? Like, why does the Preemptive Strike need to be something that requires a dupe for the character, right? Is there another way they could have went around Preemptive Strike? Does it need to exist in the first place? Should units just have it built in kit? I think it could be a lot more interesting if units had, like, some hidden passive. Now, as somebody who played Genshin, there are units that have, like, a lot of their power hid behind, like, dupes of their character, right? So that's something that you definitely have to be concerned about, whether they're hiding too much power behind, like, their kit. So there is something to be said about that as well. And this video isn't necessarily just me making suggestions about, like, this is what Tourdog should do or what they shouldn't do, but it's kind of like an observation, really. That Preemptive Strike is insanely important in this game. So it's like, would you rather they have Preemptive Strike as one of their breakthroughs? Would you have it just a part of their kit innately and just have some characters that can't get preemptive? Or would you, like, put some, like, extra effects here? Would you essentially just put some, like, bonus here instead of the Preemptive Strike? That's sort of what I've just been thinking about, really, because whenever you do content with new characters, they typically always feel weird. Very, very weird. I kind of talked about this on stream with Florine. I'm not going to go too much further into it because I feel like I've kind of explained my point, but kind of like with Florine, for example, it's like she feels very awkward to use with my Thunder team. So to show you my like typical Thunder team at this point. So luckily I haven't used any Thunder units in Calamity Codex. But let's go and show you my Thunder team here. So we have Michael at the head. We probably have Kana. I can swap out Kana for any unit. Florine. We have Beverly for conversion. And then we have Nadine here for healing. So this team, and actually we can just jump into this here actually. So this team feels very, very awkward. It feels strong. Don't get me wrong. It feels like it has a lot of power, but it also feels like it's missing like an important aspect of like the team composition. That's because Florine here isn't doing squat. And look at her cooldown. She has a 4-round cooldown here. We have to wait 4 turns before we can use her active skill. And debatably, the active skill is only good for bursting down the boss here. Probably not really that debatable, but like round 1, this is something you're probably gonna want. So I can go and do all these conversions, right? I can go have a heyday here. I can do whatever I want. And now I'm just going in on the boss without Florine's skill. And look at all these yellow tiles I'm using. If I had like a slightly better converter here, I could have got an Aurora time. But it wouldn't have mattered because Florine doesn't have her Preemptive Strike. So that's the thing I kind of put on the table here, right? Is do Preemptive Strikes matter too much, and does it kind of like make new characters not feel as fun? Like, is that kind of like the driving force for like spending in this game? Is you want a unit, you want it to be good. The only way for it to synergize with the rest of your team, though, is for you to spend the money. Or you can wait patiently. That's another thing to consider as well, is everything I said effectively obsolete if you're just willing to wait. Which, you know, is perfectly fine. But, at least in my opinion, if I pull a unit, I want to use it right away, right? In a game like this here, Alchemy Stars, the content for me is the units. So if I pull for a unit, I want to be able to use them with the rest of my units. I want to be able to throw them with a collaboration of different units that are fun, and I want to make them fun together. But if I can't get them to work together because I'm missing preemptives, it's kind of a bummer. I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like that's a good ending point. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a rant, but that was just something I kind of thought of. You know, it doesn't like personally like ruin my enjoyment of the game at all. It's just something I kind of like noticed, right? How it like kind of affects my team comps. It kind of affects the power of units in a certain way. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So remember to like and subscribe, guys, and I will be back with more videos as always. So peace.